Welcome back, guys. This is the last part of the Amazon clone in Angular. In the last video we covered the shopping cart. We added the shopping cart page, removed it, delete items and stuff like that. Today we're going to be covering signing in with Amazon, actually with Firebase, and how to verify and actually hosting this website on Firebase. So this is what we're copying. And this is our actual site. So the first thing you need to do, you need to go to Firebase, create an account if you don't have one. So I'm going to move to a different account. And go to console. So the first thing they'll ask you is to add a project. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it my Amazon. So I'm going to spell name Amazon clone. Continue. Continue. Select an account. Select the default one. Going to create your project. Then another thing you might need to download Firebase tools. It's an npm package that you will install globally. You need to copy this. Npm install global Firebase tools. Go to your command prompt. I install it. I've already installed it, so I won't do it again. Continue. Then you need to select this icon because we're creating a web application. Pick a name. I'm just going to call it Amazon. Click set up Firebase hosting because we'll be hosting it later. Register the app. Next, it's actually going to tell you to install Firebase tools, which you've already done, hopefully. Then these are the commands we're going to do next. So you need to log into Firebase. Let's just go back to our project. So once you've installed the tools, I've already logged in. We need to run Firebase Login. It should ask you for your email and your password for the account you've used on the Firebase console. Mine's taking a bit of time, but it's because I've already logged in, so that's probably why. So as it's doing its thing, another command you need to add. So once it asks you, just log in. That's not this one. It's taking its time. But anyway, as it's doing its thing, Angular actually has a helper function to add Angular Fire to your project. And to add it, you need to run ng add at Angular Fire. Angular Fire. Why is everything so slow? Just installing packages. As it's installing its packages, it can be doing something else. So let's continue to console, and we need to get the configuration. So go to project settings, click on config, and you need to copy this. So you'll get your API key. I'm hiding that, the auth domain, the database. You need to copy all this. Come to your project file and close all this. So when you open editors, so we'll create a new folder. I'm going to call it shared. So we can place our configuration file. Let me just call it config. New folder, config. Then inside config, let's create a file and call it firebase.config.ts. Need to paste our config and export it. Installing packages, it's going to ask you to select a project. Now it's getting these projects from your Firebase console, and the reason you can get them is because you've logged in. Like I logged in here, so I already logged in. So it's saying you already logged in. So using your arrow keys, just select the name of the project you chose, and that's it, you're done. Now the next step, we're actually going to create a service that will handle our auth. And generate service. Yes, going to put it in services. So this is auth. So the created, and this is where we're going to be handling our what's this? I was wondering where the top is. So we're going to be handling our authentication with Google. So the next step, you need to come to this, back to your project, and switch on authentication. So you're going to go to signing method, email and password and enable it and save. So it's saying enabled, and now we can actually start coding something. I'm thinking maybe we make a bit of the page. Let's work on the page first, the login page. So with this page, this one we're going to use to sign in. And the first thing we're going to do is need to do div. I'm going to call it login, give it a class of login. Then I'm going to create another div with login container. Then another div with a form. Then a header with the word sign in. Sign in. Then now the actual form, no action. Header of 5H5 with email, just a word that says email, then an input. Type is email, then the password, H5 password, and an input to type password. Then there are two buttons, one for logging in, sign in, so I've written sing sign, and another button with no, let me just copy this, terms and conditions, and another button with create Amazon account, and the form is done. Let's see how it looks. So this is how it looks. We've not added any CSS. In fact, I think I have some CSS here I should delete. There's some CSS, so yours probably looks like this. But now when I add back the CSS, it should look like that. Let's give the button some classes. Now at the top here we should have the Amazon logo. I just copied it from the net. It's just above. So you can, let me put this down so that you can see the whole of it. You can copy the same URL, it should bring the same image. Let me give the buttons some classes. This button for signing, I'm going to give it a class of login signing button. and the one for create Amazon should be like that. So CSS goes up to them. So that is how it looks. It's not picking the image. Oh, because we need to put maybe some CSS for the logo. So let's add the login logo. So what did I call it? HTML. Let me just check. The login logo. I don't know why it's not showing. Login containers. Yeah, login logo is equals I. Maybe the website I was getting it from has deleted it. I'll check. We'll come back to that. Let me just add the rest of the CSS. So we've gone as far as the login logo. So there's a lot of CSS here. Login form. Let's just go one by one. So we're giving it a border of light gray, some padding, and a width of 300. So you're seeing the border is light gray. I'm going to give the target the H1. It's bringing an error. What's the error for? This is closed. Well, maybe there's not closing bracket. So made the H1 a bit bolder. Going to target the inputs and the H5. So I've changed the font weight, I've changed the input, the height of the input boxes, and the margin to the bottom, and the background color, and the width. I think they're going all the way, they're going 98% of the size they can actually achieve. So the two buttons, I'm going to give them their colors and everything. So assigning button as that color, border, width, height, everything. The border color, that's how the color is on the Amazon website. Basically the border, the color of the border, and the login button is just, the create account button is just gray, just like that. So I'm going to figure out why the logo is not showing. Probably the link is broken. Yeah, probably the link is broken, or how I'm targeting it. Let me just a minute. Let me see if we can figure it out real quick. Let's just call the logo login logo. Maybe the link is broken, that's why it's two. It's probably the link that is broken. Let's just continue. So we actually have now a form that we can fill in m@m.com and the password, but it's not actually doing anything. It's just submitting, but it's not doing anything. Now to make it work, we'll introduce something called the Angular reactive forms module. This will power this form and actually make it do stuff. So the first thing we need to do is actually import it into our imports. We're calling it reactive forms module. The good thing about it is it can do validation for you. It can do a lot of, like, it adds a lot of functionality to your forms. So the next thing we need to do is now import it's called the form builder. And now we actually create an element of a form. Let's call it login form, and it's of type form group. You see at the top I've actually imported this from Angular Forms, and in app modules reactive forms is actually being imported from Angular Forms. Now after that we need to actually create a function that creates this form once this page is loaded. So we're going to call it create form, and it's going to take the login form and assign it to the form that is to the form builder function that actually builds the form. And what you need to pass in now the actual, what do you call them, email, the value. Would you call them values? You'd call them like email and the password, what you actually want to capture. So the reason we are putting blank here blank means that the email will be blank the first time you load this form. Password is also blank. So we need to tell this to create this form immediately this page loads, basically. So just like that, we already done with the backend of the form. So let's fire it up to the front, the HTML. What you need to do here is to give this form like to the controller, to tell it like what will be controlling it. And you want to pass in form group, and now give it the name of the form, which you named login form. Then for each input we're handing the controller over to, there's an error somewhere, but I'll just continue. You need to give it, we're handing the control to this, for this input element to now to the login form we've just created. So you need to say form control name is email. This is the email we've just given, and I'll show you why it has control. And now here we need to say form. No, this is form, sorry. Control name is one error. Is the password. So let's see what the error is saying, because it seems to be an error. It's saying property login form doesn't exist in login component. Call it login form. Is it good? I think so. It seems to be okay. So do we have any errors? The front end seems to be working. So let me show you how it's got in control. If you actually put the email here at m.com, the value has changed to m at m.com. So this form has control of the HTML element, the form element. So let's delete that so that it's blank. The next thing we need to do is probably add like a button for creating account and signing in. So let's add sign in function. For now, let's console.log. This is how you get the values for the form. This dot login form dot value email. Let's just check all of them and the password to make sure all of them are working. So this is login form dot value password. Then let's add the signing method. So you want with the signing one here on click sign in. Then let's open our control panel. No, console panel. Let's delete all this. So the email is m at m.com and the password is 123456. And we sign in. So we're getting the values m.m.com and the password is 123456. So the next step is actually now creating the service that does login and no, let's just create first also the create account just that and give it to the HTML click click create account. So services. So what's happening? What do you mean? I've just created it. Oh, I've not saved it. So let's create a service. I thought I already created it. I don't have an auth. Oh, it's there. Auth service is there. So when you go to an auth service, the first thing we need is we need to import the fire auth, Angular fire auth. Let's call it private. Let's go Firebase auth. Angular fire auth. It's not importing it automatically, so let's just import it. And for it to work, we need to go to app module and actually Angular fire auth. Angular fire auth is not installed. I thought I'd done the whole thing. ng add at Angular. That we've gone through this step. So if we had already done this, it probably already works. But I'm going to try and run it again and see whether that's where the problem is. In the meantime, I'm going to add Angular Fire module to my app module. So it's an import. Angular Fire module. Let me import it. It comes from Angular Fire. So Angular Fire is not imported. It's not has not been installed. So I'm going to stop there and give it a few minutes to install. Then I'll come back. That. And so now Angular Fire is actually working. And I've imported Angular Fire module. And the last thing you need to do is add initialize app and pass in the config file that we've added. It should be under what I call it. I called it Firebase config. I called it Firebase config. So let me import it. And put it at the top. Actually, I just called it Firebase config. Let me just check. It's Firebase config, node.config. Firebase config. You still can't find it automatically. So let me go import Firebase config from config Firebase config. Don't think there are any errors. Let me check. Let's go back to the old service. This is probably the old service. Wait. this error coming from? Error node modules, engine post. Let me just stop the whole thing and run it again. Sometimes you need to do that. So another thing we need to import. We are at the auth service, private. ng zone lets you run what would I call it? Like run functionalities outside Angular. Like now if you're using a third-party module, it has to do something, and before it finishes, you can actually run it outside Angular. You have to import it to see how that will work, and router to change routes once we've let's say signed in or confirmed someone has created an account. Also import that. So the first Angular Firebase auth thing we are going to use is this. Checks if someone is signed in to your project. So you're using the FB auth, and now we're checking the auth state. And we're subscribing to it, and we're checking if there's a user, meaning that someone is authenticated and is signed in. So we're getting back a user if someone is signed in. And for now, let me just console log this. So that you see what you're getting back from Firebase. Then we'll create a signing method. That takes in an email and a password. So it looks like the error is gone. We just need to restart Angular. Sometimes that happens. It's working fine now. So this takes an email and a password and return this dot. So you're seeing all this. You can use all these functions. What we need is sign in with email and password. So the first thing we need to pass is an email and the password. It's that easy to sign in someone. They have given you all the functionalities. Then once that is signed in, where are we? Yeah. Then grab the result and if basically there's a result, you use a router to navigate. So you can take someone back to the home page. That's how you do it. But if there's an error, so we're catching the error. So whether the password is wrong or whatever, Google is handling all this for you. You don't have to do anything. So for now, we're just going to do, you can make this more fancy. We're just going to be throwing an alert dot message. So we'll be throwing an alert to like the window. We'll see how that works. We can actually make it more fancy than that. Let me make this smaller. We want to do the sign up. Again, we're just passing the email and password. When someone signs up, we are also just going to do return this .fb.out. I'm going to call it create user, user with email and password. Pass the email, pass the password, then if there's a result, again just navigate to home. So it's the same thing, and if there's an error, we catch it and display it. Now the last thing we may do is actually log out. We're just going to make it simple, but we're going to add a few things here later. We're going to same thing, return this .fb out .sign out. Doesn't return anything, then it's going to take you back to the login page. Okay, so that is that. So we're going to see what this is actually bringing, the odd state, because it shows whether you're actually logged in or not. And to get it, let's go back to our service, our login page here, and import the odd service. Service, it's not seeing it, no problem, let's import it. Import odd service from let's go higher, since services, odd service. Let's see if you're actually getting anything. It's not checking whether someone is logged in. I need to play around with it a bit. So let's just first try and sign in. So let's delete this and say this .auth sign in you're passing this dot login form dot value email, and you're also passing this dot login form dot value password. So let's try signing in before we actually create an account, see if we'll get any errors. So account again, m@m.com, and the password 12345. Sign in. Give it a minute. So it's saying there's no user recorded corresponding to that identifier. He's actually going to the Google Firebase authentication service. It's authenticating and it's saying there's nothing, nobody, because we haven't created any account. Let's go back and actually implement the create account. This .auth .sign up, passing this whole thing. And now let's pass it m@m.com, and the password is 12345. Let's put it up to 5. Let's see if there's an error. Create account. So it's saying the password should be at least 6 characters. Okay, let's add 6. Create account. It's created and taken us to the home page, and it's that easy. So this is firing the function that we had at the top that checks whether someone is logged in. And this is all the information you're getting back from Firebase, Google's Firebase auth. So we're getting the email. We had put display name, the email whether it's verified, using all this information, phone number, you have a photo, URL, all these things. Now what we need to do is, well, the reason it was not firing is because we only had if there was a user. We didn't put else, so that if someone is not logged in, you can see what it's actually bringing. But it should probably just bring blank. So now it's saying we're actually logged in, and we have a double check because here the auth state is saying we're logged in. There's actually an user. Let's go back to sign in, and now actually sign in with m@m.com and put the password 12345 sign in. So it has signed in. So now we have a user. We have a user in the database. Let me switch to this so that we actually look at our database and see if we can actually see them. Go to console. Amazon clone. Seeing analytics. Authentication. So you're seeing the user is already there, m@m.com. So let's now implement sign out. So that we have a sign out method. And for that, I would like the sign out method to be at the top here, so that you're signing in. And before that, we can create another function here to actually check and actually store this user in the locally. So to do that, let me just first create an element and call it user data. And it's of type any. You don't do equals, you actually do that. And now once we've confirmed that there's a user, we can just do, let's pass this s.user data. Let's call it user. And now pass local storage, set item. Let's give it a key of user. And the only thing I need for now is an email. We don't need much. And now we'll create another item here. For logout, I want to say local storage dot remove item. So when someone logs out, you want to remove them from local storage. Then you can also have a function that just checks whether someone is actually logged in. Let's call it is logged in. For storage dot get item user. Then check if there's actually a user, and if there's a user, return true, otherwise return false. Then you want to also want a function that gets a user. So we're just going to get user, then return. If there's a user, return the user, otherwise return null. So let's go to the header and play around with it. What we need to do, just a minute, let's go to where's it? Components, under components, header. And the first thing we need to import is the auth service. And now in the header here, we need to check if someone is not signed in. We show the sign in method. Otherwise, we show their name or their email. Actually, that's why I took the email and say, so we're going to use an ng if here. So if auth dot is, how did we call it? Let me just use the auth service is logged in. So if auth is logged in, you can display hello, and let's fetch this from user auth dot get user. So if the user is if this is true, you can display the whole of this span, and you're going to say hello auth dot get user. And get user, we're getting it from this function we just created, the last function we created in auth service. Get user, and it's either returning a null or user. Then the sign in, we'll do the opposite. Ng if the user is not signed in, let's see if that works. So it's saying hello mm.com. So it's not showing the other one because the user is already signed in. Now we need to change here. We don't want this to always go to login. We want to actually change them into button clicks. So if someone clicks here, when they're already signed in, we want to sign them out. And now if someone actually clicks here, this can actually be a router link to take them to now the login page. This is when they're not logged in. So let's create this sign out. And it's there. This does this dot auth dot sign out or log out. Doesn't take anything. So let's see how that works. No errors. When you click, signed you out. It should navigate you back to what's logout doing. But it's not a must. To navigate, how comes it's not? Just a minute. Has it removed the item first? Application. When you have a shopping cart, let's sign in. Let's move this to sign in. Let's add m.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's sign in. Just adding the user and log out. I don't know why it's not firing to take us back to the login page. Let me just check it out for a minute. Maybe it's because we've added this. Should be fine now. One more time. Sign in at m.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. Sign in, sign out. I don't know why it's not firing. That's another issue that we have, but we'll solve it. Again, the image is not loading. Those are two issues, but let's just continue. We'll come and sort them out later. There must be something I'm forgetting. What am I forgetting? Seems to be nothing. Okay, let's create a footer. As I'm saying, the footer was not created, but it's a very simple thing to do. Let's just call it the footer. We're almost finishing this project, by the way. The next thing is just now pushing it to host it. We just need to add a bit of CSS with the background. The footer is at the bottom of the page, so footer component I've not saved. Now so the last thing we need to do is actually push this to hosting, and to do that we need to build it first. So you build an Angular app. So what it's going to actually produce will be what you'd hand over to like a hosting company to do the hosting. So it will create a folder here called distribution, and that will be your produced website or your final website in its final form. So let's wait for ng-build to do its thing. So ng-build is done. If you check on top here, it's in this file. There's a file called dist, then the name of your app. The next step is to do Firebase init. We're initializing Firebase so that we can deploy to Firebase. Again, let's wait for it to do the same. So the first thing it's asking is, are you ready to proceed? Yes. Now you're going to use the arrow keys to select hosting. Press space to select. Press enter to confirm. We're going to be using an existing project, and the project is my clone, my Amazon clone. Again, the arrow keys to select. Enter. Now this is a tricky part. What do you want to use as your public directory? We need to tell it to use, instead of using public, we need to tell it to use this folder, the folder that we built when we ran ng build. So just need to write this, then the name of your project. So I'm getting this from here. This. Enter. Configure as a single page app. Yes, this is a single page app. I don't want to set up build with GitHub, so I'm pressing no. So it wants to overwrite this file. the index HTML that Angular, the build created for us. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to say no. And that's it. It's already done configuring. The next step is to run Firebase Deploy. We're actually now deploying to Firebase to do the hosting for us. Again, it's going to take just a few minutes or even seconds. It's deploying. And just like that, it's done. We're getting here the URL for the remote one. Let's open it and see. And there, just like that, you have a website hosted by Firebase and Google. And it works the same. You can sign in. Let's just use the same user we had created. And you can sign in and you asking whether you want to save the password. So that's the complete project. I know probably maybe you can figure this out on your own. See why we're not getting the logo. Maybe you can write in the comments if you have a solution for this. That's the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. You can share. It really helps. And you can also like and comment. I'm working on the next project. So I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.